Hey, everybody, welcome to King's Conversation. It is the end of the month. I am Mark Wiggins, editor-in-chief of Off the Bench magazine, author, motivational speaker, all-around dope dude. And we're glad to be back on our rotation of having our King Conversations to all the kings out there. This format, this platform is for us to have a conversation about being better men. Everybody say better, right? So we're going to have the conversation that we've talked about fathers and daughters. We've talked about business. We're talking about relationships a little bit. And as we start this season now with the conversations about what we need to do as kings, we're going to bring on good brother Ronald ONeal to talk about his position about kings making and taking care of their kingdom and how to make sure their kingdom grows. And we talk about what a kingdom is. It is any sphere of influence that we show up in. That's our kingdom. That's our reign, right? That's who we impact. When we are sent on mission, we show up somewhere. We are the ones out looking for folks, whether you're on the job, whether you at the gas station. When you touch a section, when you come into the room, that is your place of influence. And how do we become better at that? Because definitely, as you can see, things are going on around this world by the hour, absolutely crazy. And only, when good men don't stand up and do something, then anything will happen. And we need to make sure that we encourage one another, especially in our homes, as our children are launching and moving out and going on their own. And we want to make sure they have everything they need to have. So we will have that conversation, Mr. ONeal, this evening. King Conversation is brought to you by Stacey Tucker's insurance agency. If you follow along early this month, we had a 3-part series on insurance, and it's a great series to go back on and watch, and definitely reach out to her and her team if you have any insurance questions, because she is that good. And the conversation was good information. It was about undeferring your financial legacy. The word of the year is undefer. So we're going to go back and get something and bring it back to us in the live action. And usually our financial legacy is something we as a community don't talk about. We don't deal with. We try to deal with it when it's too late, and then it becomes a disaster. So they try to mitigate that for us and had a conversation earlier. So anyway, we'll bring that on to you today. Also, I want to thank our corporate partner, CD Tickets, for partnering with us in OTB events for all your ticket needs, any shows and events. There's some hot concerts out. If you not got your Beyonce tickets, well, I feel sorry for you. Prices are going up. Now, we still may get something for you. I know Drake is dropping, everybody's coming out. So whatever events are, no matter where they are, hit me up. Let's connect you and get you into where you want to be and get off the bench and enjoy yourself. All right, coming to the stage, brother Ronald ONeal. What's up, good brother? How are you?
Hey, how you doing, Mark?
Welcome to King Conversations. And, here we talk about stuff that matters to us as kings. And first order of business, I want everybody to know that Ronald ONeal is my fraternity brother from Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Good brother, when did you cross? Where did you go over?
Fall 82, Theta Rho chapter, Louisiana Tech University.
Louisiana Tech. All right. Was it Raging Cajuns? Is that right?
No, that's the other school, if you will. we're the Bulldogs.
Oh, the Bulldogs. Okay, my bad. All right. But anyway, good. Brother Neil, why don't you go again? I don't do bios and stuff. Go ahead and tell our audience, our kings out here listening, those watching, more about who you are.
Okay. Well, coming from out of school, which has been a few decades ago, as they say. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary for my line. And so thank you very much. And so I've been in the IT field ever since. Done work for oil and gas companies, other pharmaceutical companies, consulting work. And so it's always been my passion, my dream, my fun. I kind of believe that if it stops being fun, it becomes a job, it's not fun anymore. So I like to have fun. If I'm creating, if I'm being innovative, I'm having fun. And so that has allowed me to transition over my years, if you will, to follow technology, all the way from, the mainframe world, if you will, coming out of school, all the way to the artificial intelligence that's, come out today. So it's been there a while, but now I've been trying to get into it, and I've kind of been on the edge in my career. And so when I've talked to my bosses or companies I work for, there's always been that, what are you talking about? And so the one thing that I've tried to do is, whether my company, and I recommend this to anybody, if you see a change, it doesn't have to be necessarily IT. One of my daughters, she's in education. And I say, they will give you a curriculum. They will give you got to do this. take that and innovate that. And so you are ahead of everybody else. Sometimes you have to go on. Sometimes you have to wait for them to catch up with you. But you always have those ideas when you go into those meetings, and you're going to stand out. And so to take what you've said about getting off the bench, get off the bench and don't wait for somebody to tell you what to do. Use your skills that you already have and say, okay, how can I improve or innovate beyond where we are today? Because if you look over time, things have always changed. In particular in the IT field, it's always changed. If things doesn't change, we probably still walking or riding in a carriage with a horse or riding a Model T.
Right.
So,
that's crazy.
Again, get off the bench.
Definitely. Now, let me start. It's because you're the OG in the room, deference being shown. When you're in these rooms and trying to make your way, what are you now telling your generation beneath you? What are you telling bros like me? You're telling your children, again, further beyond just the how to stand out, but what else are you imparting on them to be the best they can be in these environments?
Well, I kind of take a lot of things, and if you talk to my kids, like a lot of kids, they say, okay, Dad, we've heard enough. But I believe to give them all the knowledge and wisdom and experience that I've gone through and say, you're going to see this. And sometimes I have to wait as I talk to them about what's going on. From a father perspective, and I've learned this through experience and tell other fathers. And again, I go by my faith. And so when I look at in the Bible says Ephesians 6, 1-4 talks about children obey your parents. That's part of the directive. The other part of that area, those verses says, fathers to do not provoke your children to wrath. And so it's a symbiotic relationship. Children obey your parents in the Lord, but fathers, to raise your kids in the admonition of the Lord. So they work together, although they're separate. And so I really thought about that as I've done my own personal studies. And responsibility is an option. Accountability is not.
Oh, wow.
And so I know, again, from my faith, I believe God's going to hold me accountable. I got a choice whether I'm going to take the responsibility. So if you think about when you go on your day-to-day job, you're hired to do a certain job, you're given responsibilities. Now, what goes on, whether you were over it or not, sometimes you're held accountable. So take that along with making yourself always valuable. Again, that goes back to the innovation and getting ahead of everybody else, because sometimes you decide you want to leave. Sometimes other people decide it's time for you to leave. So you keep yourself valuable. You keep yourself, whether it's through getting certifications, whether it's you have to go back to school, and having people to understand, especially like I say, those that come behind me, whether it's my our frat, my friends, our family, or just having a conversation with somebody. It goes back. Don't wait for somebody to tell you what your value is. That's determined by you. By God is giving you the skills, and you decide what you want to do with it. Because think about it. You may come up with an idea. You say, well, I'm not going to do it. If somebody else says, that's not going to fly. Through my personal experience, 6 months later, plus or minus, somebody else is doing it. And you sit there and go like, I had that idea. Well, and again, it goes back to my faith. God is no respecter person. He's going to give me an idea, and he can give the same idea to other people. It's who acts upon it. I mean, think about it. We look at it, again, from a technology standpoint. A lot of people come up with software ideas. And you don't have to necessarily be the first person to come out with it, but can yours be above everybody else, or how can you sell it? And so, from a parent standpoint, I try to put into my kids, we watch a lot, I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and I see certain things. I say, hey, come watch this. I don't say anything because I've probably said it already. But I say, if it's in their particular area, because our oldest, she's a teacher. She's also an author. She has a children's book coming out a little bit later, in the next few months. She's in the music. She has some music she's just released, and some more coming out. Our middle one, she's working on getting physician's assistant school, and then our third one she graduated international marketing. Both the oldest and the youngest, they had gotten their masters over the last year. And so when I see things on Shark Tank or I read things, I say, hey, look at this here. What you're doing is what they're doing, but they took it just a little bit further. They know the term outside of the box. If you want to say it's been run to the ground, that's fine. But again, it's about being innovative, solving people's problems. That's all what Shark Tank is about. And so as a father, my job is I support my kids, both my wife and my kids, and say, okay, it's not always well for me to give the answer. Sometimes just giving that listening ear, but say, hey, did you think about this? Here's some things you ought to go think about. And being a father, a husband and a father, especially with your kids, you want them to not go through any aches and pains, not go through any problems. So I say, hey, if you go do A, B, C, and D, you'll be all right. They may go A, B, D, and E. And okay, all right. But they're learning. And sometimes it's not just necessarily for them to learn, it's for me to learn. I didn't think about E. But sometimes you hear them think about E and you're like, okay, what I have taught them, they're doing. So the support of our spouses, the support of our kids. I kind of came with three S's. The first S is salvation, their relationship with God. The second S is safety. Wherever they go, whatever they do, whoever they're with, I want them to be safe. I mean, we know the things that are going on in our society, things that are happening, yesterday at the school in Nashville. But we want our kids to be safe wherever they go and whatever they do and whoever they're with. And then the third one is success. Not necessarily defined by the world, but for them to be happy in what they're doing, to be successful. Not from a judgment of other people, but I'm doing something to be a good contributor, and trying to help somebody. And like I say, from a school standpoint, from a medical standpoint, from a communication standpoint, they have the opportunity to take their skills, their talents, and help people. And you want to be self-sufficient. I would say you initially got to get out of the house. Just try to get out of my pocket. If you know they can take care of themselves, especially from a father standpoint, you have a little peace. And that's all I want. I have peace when I know that they're okay. They can be able to take care of themselves because, I'm not going to be here forever. That's just the way life is. And so try to give them all the knowledge, all the wisdom, all the experience. And you can say, look, you're going to make mistakes. Just don't make the same ones I made. I'm telling you the mistakes I make. We're going to make some new ones.
Wow.
And you're going to make some new ones and you grow. We always want our kids to do better than us. And so if you're not making my same mistakes, then at least I know you got a certain foundation. If you make some new ones, hopefully they're not worse than the ones I made, then they're doing better. But at least they won't make the same ones and go through some of the same things. They may do it, but maybe not to the same magnitude. So again, all we try to do is love our kids, love our family, and that's why we do what we do.
Good brother, that's awesome. The 3 S's. What was the first one again?
Salvation, relationship with God.
Second one.
The second one is safety. Wherever they go, whatever they do, whoever they're with, we want them to be safe.
And third one.
Success.
Success.
Be happy in what they're doing to be successful, and that they can contribute and help others. They want to be able to take care of themselves. Again, make some money, but sometimes you can make money, doing some jobs, but some other things you're doing will give you more success than that day-to-day job. So
That'll preach right there, good brother. That'll preach right there. All three of those: salvation, safety, and success. It's funny. I'm listening to you talk, and you sound like somebody's daddy, and it sounds like my father in my ear, telling me things about success, telling me things like he would say the following things: "Your job is to do more than I've ever done. Your challenge is I've done an awful lot." So you're gonna have to catch up. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh my God, how can I ever be? But in the back of my mind, he was really throwing me at the last S, success. He's setting you up for a goal or a to go do, right? The expectation is that you outdo him, as we should. But it's incumbent upon the king to make sure that everyone else has the tools they need to actually outpace them. And sometimes I think we as men don't necessarily do that. We don't invest the time in our kids to make sure they outdo us. I don't know why. Maybe we're fearful that they're gonna outdo us. I want my son to outdo me and my daughter. Go ahead, knock it down. Because like my daddy said, I don't know a whole lot. So you can get past me, and it's great. That's what we want. That's the only way we're gonna, progress our whole communities and whatever, is to strive for achievement in every field of human endeavor. That's the goal, and that's what we try to do. As we try to do. I love it. Now, when we're talking about kings protecting and taking care of their kingdom, how is this translating to your daughter? You mentioned your daughters. I know I chatted with the one doing the music, and she has major projects coming. How are you living it out with her specifically at this moment?
It's things when she went to school. She went to it's okay if I say the school. I mean, I know. Okay, she went to Prairie View A&M. Happy she went there. Any place you go, I went to Louisiana Tech. She went to Prairie View. Again, 2 different states. And so wherever she chose to go, I said, I don't care where you go, because it's not, to a certain extent, it's not where you go. It's what you do when you get there. Because I know people that have gone to Harvard, or gone to Princeton, or gone to Penn State, and they flunk out. Again, it's not where you're going in this particular case, it's what you do when you get there. And then there's some schools that are looked on that may be considered lower tier, if you will. People have gone there and they've risen to the top. I mean, we take into, I guess, a prime example today. The Vice President of the United States went to Howard. In certain circles, it was looked down upon, but rose to Vice President of the United States. So it's what you do when you get there. We have some frat brothers that have gone to either Prairie View or other HBCUs. They're risen to the top in their fields in major corporations because, one, their relationship with God, they've been blessed. What they've done when they've gotten there at school, and then when they've gone onto their jobs. So that's what I try to instill in our kids is, you're going to run into some problems. You're going to run into some people that are not going to like you just because of your outer self. No, they may not like you because of your inner self, but you have to like yourself. And I know a lot of our kids deal with the issues from a social media standpoint. And so, all parents, fight that. And so, especially when you go to school or you go on these jobs, you judge heavily for the smallest thing. But we have to say, okay, if you like yourself and you're trying to do the right thing, you can't worry about anybody else. It's pressure. I know it's not. They wrestle with. We all wrestle with it. But when you're happy with yourself and you have faith in God and not man, you grow stronger from it. Because it's like, okay, I look in society, a lot of the shows, and I won't call any out. But a lot of shows are based on me taking somebody else out. Not me lifting somebody up, but taking somebody else out. And some people, it's so detrimental to their psyche, they do things to themselves. If we look into last year, the young lady that was Miss America, if I remember correctly, she committed suicide. You had Twitch at the end of the year, he committed suicide. I don't particularly know the details behind it, but externally like they had everything. We don't understand what were they going on internally, what were they fighting. And so this is where, as a parent or as parents, loving our kids and having sitting down, slowing down, and having that communication with them. I know it's hard for some parents, but we got to say, okay, the first job I worked on coming out of school, I haven't worked there in 20 years. Nobody has called me from that job and said, hey, Ron, how you doing? How your family doing? So it's not about the job, it's about the people. I have people back from school, frat brothers that, we still talk to this day, and it's 40 years later. How you doing, Ron? So it's the people and the connection you work for. Don't wrap yourself in a job that you can't move through life. Because again, jobs come and go, but the people that are around you that love you are going to support you in good times and bad. And so, communicating as a father. Go ahead.
Yeah, brother, you're dropping some serious nuggets. And again, when it comes from, because King conversation coming from the male perspective, some of the things you talk about, we lack the agility to do these things, right? We lack the agility to be able to seek the help. We lack the agility to go and stand out and be that thing for someone else, right? Putting pride aside, making sure people are good, making sure we're good. And you mentioned those suicides and things like that. Like you said, on the outside, it looked amazing. Like it's a life I want to have. I want to be this, that, and the third. And we never really know. And I feel for the family of those people. I also feel for the people in the circle, right? They're in the circle and thought they knew, but didn't really know. And then you got to ask the question that I even really try to know, that try to get a little further inside of that. I remember our chapter is on record as in the county had, I think I was Polmark at the time, a brother committed murder-suicide.
Wow.
And it was the tragedy of the community. It touched everybody in the community. And there were people who, we actually had meetings with brother just crying out. I didn't want to have a meeting. I wanted to bring a therapist and we didn't have discussion. We just sat around and lamented the emotion and just to get it out. And some people like, I didn't know, I thought I knew, and I didn't ask, or I didn't, you know what I'm saying? And that's not what we need to be doing as kings. If we are saying something, we really need to, sometimes you may have to cross that line with a person and say, listen, I'm gonna clear my conscience and answer this question. Now, if you don't want to answer it, come back. What you won't do is have me feeling guilty because I didn't at least attempt to try something. And maybe you're the right one to get it. Maybe someone asked before. Again, recently a good friend of mine passed right at the end of the year, and untreated hypertension. I was sad when he died. Then I was pissed that way he died. I'm like, are you serious right now? Untreated hypertension. You knew and chose to do nothing about it. And we talked about his weight. We talked about all these other things, and he chose to do something. But again, we have to make our own choices. But to your point, we need to become better at allowing ourselves to be open to having these discussions and to hearing said discussions, because when they're brought to us, we can act like everything is good, because a lot of things are depending upon us to get better.
Well, I know on Monday nights, I am part of a prayer call with some of the brothers. And so that's one of the things that we talk about is self-care. There was an article in BuzzFeed about a week and a half ago. And one of the things that people that have grown up look back and say they wish they had learned, and one was self-care. And so when I started going through, and again, I come from a point of faith, my belief in God and Christ. And I look at your spiritual health together, that flows into your mental health, because you don't let other people get to you. You can kind of push other people away, because you have a higher level of consciousness, if you will. So you go from spiritual to mental to physical. Because we understand, our mental issues that has an impact on our physical, our body. So that's stress and everything. And then when you start dealing with things like that, it goes into the physical from the financial standpoint. So a lot of these things are connected. If we can get, go back up the chain, if you will, we can address a lot of issues. And sometimes it's admitting that I have a health issue, whether it's a spiritual issue, whether it's a mental issue, whether it's a physical issue, and look at the root cause. I mean, in my career, I've been doing what's called problem management. And problem management says, get to the root cause. And it said, if you ask 5 whys, you generally get to what's causing it, the issue. No, they say, well, it was this. Well, why did that happen? Well, this happened. Well, why did that happen? Well, this. Why did that happen? Well, this. Why did that happen? And by the time you get to that 5th one, you probably get the root cause of the problem. I like to say 5 plus because it may be 1 or 2 more whys you got to ask. Because if I were to say, my A1C is high, what causes A1C to be high? Is it sugar? Well, how's my diet? Well, I just had a birthday last week along with our anniversary, so I was celebrating. So if I were to go check it now, it's probably spike. But what's the long term? If I'm measuring and monitoring it? Well, I didn't go to the doctor. Why not? Well, I had to go to work and do a double shift. Okay, why is that? Well, because I spent, we went and bought a whole lot of stuff, a whole lot of wants, not needs, but wants. So we got to go up that chain and say, okay, we got to cut out the wants until we get our life straightened out. Therefore, I don't have to work 2 jobs or 3 jobs, and then I can calm down and relax more, get rid of some of that tension and that stress. Because that stuff, if unless you're certain people, you probably moved in the house 3 or 4 times over 20, 30, 40 years, right? In that first house, you put everything into it, but you're not in that house anymore. So all the stuff you did to it to make it so-called a home, that's gone. But if love is in that house, you ain't got to have a whole lot of stuff, but if you love one another and take care of one another, hey, at some point in time down the road, you get the home, if you will, because you're planning for it. And that's one thing that go back into that article. We're not teaching our kids at a young age to plan, how to pay bills, how to budget, put things in priority. Because it's, if you look at the news reports, the credit card debt has spiked, coming out of the pandemic and the inflation and recession and everything. Now, again, I try to go back and live by God's word. It says, owe no man anything. If you owe a man anything, you become a slave to the lender. And I know life will throw you a curveball every now and then. But if we can get our kids to say, I'm going to save before I go buy, then you negotiate from a position of power instead of weakness. And if you got a minute, let me give you an example.
Take your time, Reverend. Take your time.
Okay. Our daughter was going to go buy her car. I said, okay, save up your money so when you go in, you don't have to worry about the games they're going to play. So she saved her money up. She said, okay, Dad, I'm ready. So we went, I said, okay, what kind of car you want? Let's search online, find you a good deal online. So when we go to the dealership, you kind of know what you want, see what they got and so forth. So went to the dealership. And so you're sitting there, you're going like, oh, we can do this here. And we got to give you this interest rate. Now, interest rate at the credit union that I'm a member of was like at that time, 3%, right? Okay, he said, well, you're just coming out of school and you got to establish your credit. And so, we give this loan for 6%. So I already knew we didn't want to deal with a loan. I said, what we got to do is get the price driven down. So that's, I'm doing my Denzel Washington, Michael B. Jordan for the new generation. Like, oh, well, really? Okay, well, can we get the price down? Because I'm really looking for a price to drive it down. Because I was taught from a Christian finance class, from the Bible. You come in from that position of power, you save up, you're going to pay it off. Get that price down because the company's going to make their money back on the interest rate, right?
Yep.
2%, 3% at a credit union, 6% at the dealership. Okay, we got the price down. Sign the paperwork. Next month, she paid it off. So where they thought they was going to make that money on the interest, she got hers because she drove the price down. It's that planning part of it.
Right.
that patience part of it. Save your money up. Then you go buy. And I know there are emergencies. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do. But when you can, save your money up. Plan for it. When you ready to build a house, my faith, I'm reading the Bible says, man, you got to count the cost when you go build it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can find a good because you're paying cash. So, I can talk. We can talk all night. We can have a long series about.
No, this is but it's good. But again, like I said, this is a good conversation to have. We met. We're again talking. I was interviewing and talking to your daughter about what she was doing and how proud you were in that background. I want to know more of who Dad was, right? For who came in the background, setting it up, because it was evident in what she was saying and how she was coming that someone had been schooling and training, right? The king was doing his job, training the event. And so, yes, you can train and do whatever, and they got to do what they need to do, but they don't have a starting point unless we give it to them. Well, I'm going to rephrase that. They won't have a strong starting point if we aren't giving them the information that they need to move out and do what they need to do. So I definitely want to hear all the nuggets, because you're still teaching. I'm still listening. Like, how can I put this with my son? He's coming in town. I got to make sure I pull a conversation with him and see what's going on and pour into him, check on my daughter. She's an entrepreneur, and I got to check on her and make sure that we're present and accounted for. That's what King's supposed to do, right? You got to be around. We set the example and the expectation. We also have to provide the support.
Yeah, it's you got the verbal, and you got the patience. Sometimes you can tell something, sometimes you just gotta wait, let them go through it and be there, and let them know they can come talk to you. That's one thing I had to grow in being a father, because again, with 3 daughters, I'm like Lion King. That's my baby. Those are my babies. And so, to watch them grow and to mature. The one thing, or one of the things that they have told me, say, Dad, I want a man like you. That made me feel good. But I said, baby, I'm thank you for that, but get you somebody better than me, because I'm not perfect.
Right.
I want you always, like you said before, I want you always to do better than me. So if I can set a bar high, up high, and at least if they get somebody a little bit better than me, I feel good. Hopefully, I won't go if they find somebody who's not too lower than me. But I can only do what I can do in that aspect.
That's do. Now, Brother Neal, let me ask you this: when was the shift from being dad overlord, right, to being dad supporter, teacher, observer, fan? When did that happen with your daughters?
I think it I started this shift because and to be transparent, I'm still going through it. I'm a work in progress on this. Again, I think when they was coming out of school, graduating college, I had to start, or even a little bit in college, I just kind of started stepping back. My wife and I, we talk a lot, and when it came down to them dating guys, I'm like, I know how I was in college. I know how we were in college.
Right.
No, I won't say any names or say anything, but to go through that phase, and I say, wait a minute, I know me. So I've always tried to educate them about, what they're going to run into. And when they came out, when they started telling me some of the things that I've told them, I knew I could start shifting. And so it became, okay, nowadays they would say, hey, Dad, what about this? Or, and in the case like with the music or the medicine or the marketing, anything, I say, I'm here for you. Me and my wife, we're on your team. So if you need some help, if I get some resources, I'll reach out. Like, what's the adage, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, raising a child is only part of it. When they turn 18, doesn't mean they're grown. By the world standards, 18 means, you're off my taxes or you're off my insurance. but there's a difference between being of age and being mature. Those are two different things. And so that education, that continued mentorship, if you will, to go from a parent to a mentor I think is always there, because everything doesn't always come up. And sometimes just sitting there having that conversation with our children or with anybody's child or with any person that, whether they're going through something or not, just having that communication, having it open, let them know you're there for them. And so I think my shifting was when I started hearing some of the things that I had spoken to them about, or they started doing. It's like with my oldest right now, as we work with her with her music and a children's book and some other projects she has. We have, she says it's time for a meeting. I'm like, but Dad, it's time for a meeting. So, you got to go to the board of directors meeting. And so I'll sit there and she's saying this and saying that. I've talked this, I got this, here's my schedule and everything. So as the project manager, as the CEO of her company, I'm able to sit there and go like, okay, things I've said or things she's learned in school, she's applying it now. So that's where that shift comes into play, when you start seeing your kids use their tools, use their skills. One of the things I had to learn myself, especially when you work with these jobs and other people, we tend to try to work to become CEO or reach a general manager or somewhere high in the company, right? If you don't reach it, it's like, how do I place my value? I learned some years or decades ago, I said, I can go right down to the county seat, to the county clerk, get me a DBA for $25, $35. I am now the CEO of my company. I don't have to let other people define my value. I can define my own value. As a father, I measure what God says. As an employee, I measure what God says. As a parent, as a husband, that's who I have to look at my measurement by, not man. Because one of the things that we taught our kids is, these pair of shoes are in style this year, right? Next year is a different style. You're trying to follow behind somebody. Why? Are we gonna go broke because you're trying to keep up with somebody else and then they'll change it? The situation happened. We told our daughters, this is what we can afford. She bought those pair of shoes. They became in style. So she went from being a follower to a leader. So that's what we tell our kids. Be a leader, don't be a follower. Not looking for perfection, but looking that you're applying what we were taught. And so when we see that, that's a transition. That's where, when you look at any, you're the kingdom of your castle, the king of your castle, you're training your prince and princesses to take over when you're gone.
Right.
To raise the next generation. And so instilling those things, from your kingdom standpoint, to expanding your kingdom, because the Lord said the same, you're going to have grandkids, and your grandkids and the generations grow. And so how are we going to take care of our kingdom, whether inside your house you have here or the other houses that are out there? We can change what's going on in society right now. It may take a generation or two, but we got to start now.
Definitely. So that's what I'm saying, but ONeal, brother, I appreciate you coming in and dropping some King's knowledge. Again, the whole platform of this is that I'm believe that only a king can consult with another king. Only a king can really talk to a king about being a king, because only a king recognizes being a king, right? It's just like being Greek. We can have conversations about other frats, but only another Catholic can really talk to me about being a Catholic. I hear you, but I'm hearing you. You know what I'm saying? I'll take another environment over here, but I'm listening over here. And that's what we're talking about. I mean, you hit a lot of points, all good stuff, all encouraging things, all positive things, which is what we need. I'm sure hopefully some out there has been affirmed in what they're doing or thinking about how they're running their household, how they want them to run their household, or how you're setting up to run your household. And household and kingdom to me are synonymous at this point. Whether you're single or you're married and got kids or whatnot, your household is your kingdom. And how did you set that up for future generations or whatever. I'm dealing with it now. There's a lot of things I'm putting in place, and I find myself not necessarily working for, ooh, what can Mark do to be relaxed in the future, but ooh, what can Mark do to make sure that my kids and my grandkids are good to go.
Exactly.
Right? It's kind of shift that I'm good. You know, I do what I need to do. I have fun. I need to have fun, but I want my kids. I want them to have the advantage. And we, at some point in time, we have to let our generations get that old money, old setup, like other people we know. And this is again part of the conversation we were having earlier this month with undeferring your financial legacy. You built legacy. You said it. Now we won't know what it is until you're out of here and what's left, right? We think that the Warriors have a legacy. They do, and they're a dynasty, but it's not until they're done can you analyze truly how impactful it was. And that's what we're talking about on this platform. And what you brought tonight, again, from the OG perspective, was definitely something we all needed to hear, including myself. And I appreciate you coming on and having a heart to share with other kings out here. I know we have a lot of female listeners, and I encourage them to listen to get some game about what we're talking about and make sure your young king is getting it, whether they get it from you or share with someone else, because this is great information. This is how we do this thing on my platform at any rate. This is my calling and my responsibility to make sure we have these conversations. So, Brother Neil, any last words you want to put out there before we end our conversation?
You froze up a little bit, but I think I heard you say any last words.
Yes.
Okay. I would say the one thing that helps me, is my relationship with God. You know, my prayer life, the people I hang around, and I commend you on your platform because as the scripture says, iron sharpens iron. And so what you're doing here, I thank you. I commend you, because if we're going to change things in this world, we got to start or find different ways of doing it. And your platform, your magazine, what you're doing, I really thank you for it. And I want to also give a shout out to my wife, because I haven't done this by myself. No, good kings have good queens behind them. So I want to make sure that I give thanks to her, to Connie, my wife, and as we pull together as a community, let's be there for one another. Sometimes it's not about having a verbal answer. Sometimes it's just about listening. Sometimes we'll talk ourselves through it. Oh, now I know what to do. Let's give that ear. And I think we can turn things around a whole lot faster as a community and help us all to grow. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Brother Neil. Thank you for stopping in. And that's our King Conversation for this month. I appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure you please like, subscribe, and share this out to your network. Subscribe to the magazine, offthebenchmagazine.com. It is a free subscription. We just dropped our Women of Power issue, and now we're getting ready for the April-May issue, which is my birthday month. So we got a lot of stuff coming down the road for that. And as always, I'll leave you with my father shared with me so many years ago. If you call my cell phone at this moment, I ain't gonna answer because I'm on the phone talking to Brother ONeal. You'll get the following message: if you can reach your dreams with a step ladder, then they're probably too low. I'm out.